Blink and you miss it. New developments every day on this one, Michael. So what actually unfolded today at Dragons HQ?
Well, the Dragons, they turned up for a meeting. Turned up for training, and Ben Hunt wasn't there. He was at a meeting with the CEO, the chairman, and incoming coach Shane Flanagan. Now, I've been told that he walked into the meeting, Ben Hunt, and said, I don't want to be released immediately. That his intention isn't to leave the club mid-season. He doesn't want to walk away from his teammates, but the release for the end of the season, he wants to move on from the club. Now, the Dragons, they want time to prove to Ben Hunt that the club is not a basket case. They want time for Shane Flanagan to show him this roadmap out of the current predicament they find themselves in. But Ben Hunt, he's been given the day off today. The rest of the day, he'll come back to captain's run on Wednesday and is expected to play on Thursday. This is not the last we've heard of this, though. I think they've put it on the back burner, agreed to revisit this in the off-season. If Ben Hunt still feels the same way at the end of the season, then the Dragons will have a chat with him and try and work out a solution then. But for now, the Dragons were adamant. They wanted to make sure that they weren't walked all over. And obviously the news over the past week with him requesting a release has dominated the headlines. But today, it's an emphatic no.
Captain of a club, Gal, it's exactly the role you held if you were in this situation, which he's put himself in. He wants to, he's made it public, he wants to go. He's gone in there, I guess, in a way today and saved face and buying himself some time in the club as well. Was that the right way to play it?
First of all, if I was the club, I wouldn't be letting him go this season. I think it weakens them and strengthens someone else. So I don't see the point of them doing that. And I think he's done the right thing by going in there today and saying he doesn't want to be released for this season anyway. Look, I've got no doubt the way his actions over the past couple of weeks and how he's been pretty adamant he wants to leave. I don't know whether Flano will be able to talk him around. I hope Flano can, for Flano's sake. But again, I look at his contribution to the club over the past few years. He's been great. Individually as a player, he's been fantastic. I'll never take that away from him. He's been fantastic. But there hasn't been a lot else that's come with it. So I could understand if they were to let him go. But if I was the Dragons, I'd be making sure they get a win out of it, whether that's financially or whether they pick up another player or two. However it is going to work, the Dragons have to get a win, and Shane Flanagan has to get a win out of this. They can't just release him and expect to have his $800,000-$900,000, whatever it is, back in the cap. They can go spend it on someone else. Because the fact is, there's just not quality halfbacks or quality players off contract at this point in time to go and spend that money on.
The Dragons feel there's a disconnect between what Ben Hunt is saying and what his management is saying. Now, it was reported on the weekend that he wanted to go to Brisbane immediately, and there was reported in the Courier Mail that that was all but done. But they feel what Ben Hunt wants and what his management wants isn't the same thing. Gus, you're part of a club that's looking for a halfback. What is your understanding of what Ben Hunt wants to do with his future?
Look, I don't follow the media that closely, but there's been a lot of misleading reports around Ben Hunt. He's made a request, very public request. It's been denied. I think that's where it settles at the moment. I don't think there's been any conversation with his management or Ben Hunt about the Broncos. I don't think it ever eventuated. I think that was just scuttlebutt. I don't think Ben Hunt ever offered compensation to pay his way out of his contract. Again, just scuttlebutt. People run off at the mouth with these types of things. I know it's extraordinary for a captain mid-season to be so public about the fact that, no, I want out, I'm gone. You know, they've sacked me mate, the coach. They had another coach coming in. He didn't want to come. Whatever it was that set him off for this, he made it very public about his discontent. He's made a request. The request has been denied. The club wants to hold him to his contract. That's fine. But the next time the club turns around to a player and says, you're on contract, but we need you to move, all right, the player's within his rights to say, no, I've got a contract, I'm staying, and that's the end of it. So it's a double-edged sword here. But clubs move players all the time.
But the players are well within their rights not to move.
100%.
They're well within, and it happens where players... I've been at the Sharks, I know the Sharks have told players to move on. This bloke said no. But I'm going, I've got a contract here. That's the way it works. So
exactly.
So to say that, it's not wrong, it's right. But, I mean... If the Dragons don't want to release them, they don't have to release them.
Yeah, but there's a key difference, Gal. The key difference is...
A contract's a contract.
No, but the players are guaranteed. The players are guaranteed every dollar that they are entitled to. The difference in that situation is the Dragons lose Ben Hunt. They lose their half. What do they get in return?
That's the whole point. What I'm saying, they can't lose here.
I can't imagine any club, particularly the Dragons and particularly Shane Flanagan, if Ben Hunt was to go, he'll get players in return. There's no way he's going to let him go for any financial compensation or to just walk out of his contract, unless whatever club wanted Ben Hunt, he'd be saying, well, I'll take Tom and Bill and you can have Ben Hunt, and he'll get 2 players out of it, and that's how he operates. Now, whether or not Ben wants to go to a club that actually has trades for him is another thing. I think this will fizzle out. I think by the end of the year, I think this will fizzle out and Ben Hunt will serve out his contract for the next 2 years, and retire and fade off to his home wherever it is, and that'll be the end of it. And this will have all been for nothing.
Do you think
It's been very loud. It's been very loud for it to be for nothing.
Well, it's been quite extraordinary.
Yeah, it's been loud. It's been quite
Extraordinary.
Yeah,
But Ben's brought that on because Ben made his request very public. Now they've made a very public denial. End of story, I reckon. I reckon it's the end of story.
But is the system
Ben Hunt's
broken that
playing with the
allows
Dragons.
that, Gus? Is the system broken that allows a player mid-season to go, I want to leave now?
I'll tell you where the system is broken. All right, the system is broken that if Ben Hunt wanted to leave the Dragons mid-season, right, then he should have to go into a draft, and the first team that gets picked is the team running last in the competition. All right, that might stop them from doing that. They think, well, I don't get to go to Broncos, they've got a chance of winning the comp. I don't get to go to Panthers and fill in for 3 months and maybe play in a grand final. I've got to go down to the West Tigers and battle out for a wooden spoon for the rest of the year. That might change their mind. You just can't walk out of a contract mid-season, particularly at this time of year, and walk into one of the top sides in the competition with the hope of winning a competition. And we said it last year, at this time with June 30 coming up, a few of the top teams are now rousing around the bottom teams that can't make the 8 and say, can we have Tom, can we have Bill, can we have Tony? You know, that'll help us for the rest of the year and we'll give you some compensation. All these discussions go around all the time, and that's wrong. That shouldn't be allowed to happen. But in our farce of a system, and no one's got the courage to fix it, that's what happens.
And the point the Dragons made with Ben Hunt, though, is the fact that it was only 6 months ago he re-signed for another 2 years, right? They're saying if you felt that way and you wanted to go home, you've denied us the chance to go and get A, B and C. All these players that have come off contract, they've set them back 2 years in that inability to go and sign anyone. Stephen Crichton, Tino Fasua-Malaawi, Dave Fafita, all these guys who have recommitted since Ben Hunt has decided to leave.
Nothing wrong with the Dragons knocking back the request, and there's nothing wrong with Ben making the request, but I'm saying it's done.
So I don't see too much of a flaw in the system. The contract, I know we say the contract's not worth the paper it's written on, but the fact is if they want to enforce it, it is, and which is what they're doing at the moment.